Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 9th of June, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So the Ropsten merge has happened. I was watching live on the ETHStaker live stream. I'm sure a lot of you were as well. It happened around, I think, 2:30 a.m. my time. There was a bit of kind of like trouble getting enough hash rate onto the network in order to make TTD happen faster. But we got there in the end. The merge transition went through very smoothly, I think. I don't think there were any major issues. There were a few minor issues with, I think Nimbus and Teku had some configuration issues, which just required a kind of a config change and a restart of the clients there, and that was all well and good, but the transition itself happened just fine. You can see here kind of like the picture basically of a dashboard showing it happening, and then you got the little pandas there with proof of stake activated as well. So I don't know what to say, guys. Like I obviously have been talking about this for a while now, and I was just super excited to see kind of like this play out. It reminded me of the Medasha testnet on when the beacon chain, the Medasha beacon chain testnet from way back in the day. My level of excitement was insane, and obviously we still got another 2 more public testnets to go until mainnet. But I don't even know what I'm going to feel when it gets to mainnet. Like, I've been talking about the merge for so long. We've been waiting for proof of stake since basically day one of Ethereum. It's been such a long time coming, and we're so close. But yeah, it was really awesome being on the stream with everyone. There's a bunch of people on there in kind of like typical Vitalik fashion. He had a really bad mic. I think it ended up being the cable or something like that. And I put out a tweet where I said Vitalik probably announced the mainnet merge date, but we all missed it because his mic is so bad. So that was quite funny. But yeah, just generally good vibes all around. We had Jonathan Mann singing songs for us as well, right up until kind of like the Ropsten merge happened. Now, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about with regards to the kind of Ropsten merge here. So this is the block explorer for the beacon chain, the Ropsten beacon chain, basically. So you can see here, basically, the most recent epics and then the most recent blocks. So whenever you see kind of like proposed, that means everything went well and good, all well and good. The block was proposed and the network is functioning. It's all fine. And then you got scheduled. Obviously, that's the kind of like upcoming block. And once that gets proposed, there'll be another one that's scheduled. Now, the epics are basically, there's a 1 epic every 6 minutes. 2 epic make a finalized chain. So when 1 epic is complete, the chain does what's called justifies. And then when 2 goes through in 12 minutes, the chain finalizes. And we have that economic finality with 2/3 of the stake, basically making sure that we can't rewrite history there or make it very expensive to rewrite history. Now, what I want to focus on is this percentage here. So this is basically the percentage of validators that are kind of participating and voting on kind of like on these blocks, right? Now, when you kind of look at these sorts of stuff and people kind of say, oh, only 85% instead of like 100%, right? Or only kind of like 80% instead of 100%, or whatever percentage it is, it doesn't mean, it could mean 2 things, right? Like, it doesn't mean that there's like a critical issue with the network or anything like that. So what it can mean is that either the block explorer is bugging out or having issues. That happens more often than not. But what it can mean otherwise as well is that some kind of like portion of the network has gone offline for whatever reason, and that's why the participation rate has dropped. So it was, I think, about 85% when the merge happened, and that was because Nimbus and Teku dropped off due to their configuration issues. But the thing is, it wasn't actually a problem with the network, it was just a problem with specific clients. This is why we have kind of like the multi-client architecture, so that we don't have kind of like these issues happening with just one client, because then obviously the whole network would go down. So the network is more resilient because of this. So I saw people pointing to that and being like, oh, that means the merge didn't go through the Ropsten merge didn't go through perfectly. That's kind of like a bug. No, actually, that's actually it functioning as intended. And a configuration issue is very, very simple to fix. It's just, fix the configuration, restart the node. It's or restart the validator. It's very, very simple to fix. So that's not a big deal. And if you go to kind of like the regular beacon chain website here, I'll just bring it up on my other screen here. I've actually got this in dark mode. Sorry for blinding you guys, but you can see on here, basically participation rate is 99.6%, 99.7%. And that's obviously because of the economic incentive to be online and to be validating, because if you're not, then you're not making rewards. And that's another reason why this thing would drop to maybe 85, 90, or even lower than that on testnets, is because there's no real incentive to do it on a testnet besides kind of like altruism, right? Like you're not getting any monetary reward for it, so why do you care? Like, but on mainnet you care. If you're offline, you start getting leaked and you start losing ETH, and you're not earning ETH. So obviously it's a very bad thing. So you want to be online, and that's why we see the participation rate being so high here. And if for some reason one of the clients is taking too long to, I guess, like fix their issues, especially kind of like on mainnet, then people will just switch to another client, right? And just get right back into validating. So the Ethereum beacon chain has been designed to be as resilient as possible. So I just wanted to kind of like point that out there. But in terms of a full kind of like early summary of how the merge went from a core developer perspective, you should definitely read this thread here from Parithosh, which I'll link in the YouTube description. It basically just gives like a high level kind of summary of what happened with the Ropsten merge, how it went, what they looked for. Obviously, it's going to take a few more days of kind of like analysis to give like a full breakdown of how it went and what happened there, but from what I can tell, it went very, very well. I didn't mean to rhyme, but there it is. It went very well. As I said, there are only those minor issues. The merge transition happened as it should, and I think we can move on to Sepolia and Girly in 2 to 3 weeks. I can't. The thing is, I'm having conflicting information about which one's next. Some people are saying Girly, some people are saying Sepolia. We're going to have to see like which one there it is, but I mean, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But yeah, Sepolia, Girly, and then there's going to be a 2 to 3 weeks between those, and then hopefully they all go well as well. And then we'll set kind of like finally set a mainnet merge date, which, guys, I don't even have to kind of like go on about it anymore. But yeah, I'm just so happy that the Ropsten merge went through. So I mean, I don't want to say uneventful, but like it just went through as expected, right? It wasn't like something unexpected happened. It wasn't like the chain came to a halt. It wasn't like it didn't work. It worked very, very well, and there was only those kind of like minor issues there. So definitely very cool to see. I'm looking forward to the full breakdown from kind of like the core developers, maybe like a post-mortem of kind of like what went right, what were the kind of like little things that went wrong, and kind of like how that's being fixed. I think there was a couple of other issues as well that Parithosh kind of talks about here, but apparently the fixes are already being worked on for them. So yeah, I mean, this is nothing, like I did say yesterday, or at least the day before, that the Ropsten merge would kind of like give us a better indication on timelines here. There is a core devs call, I believe, this week or next week. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's either this week or next week, which is going to give us even more insight into it. But from how the Ropsten merge went, I don't think there's going to be any kind of like change to the timeline that I've put out so far, which is the September merge. But we'll have to see what's said on kind of like the core developer call, which I'm sure they're gonna hopefully schedule the next testnet merge on that call. But yeah, everything went very well, guys. I am so happy with how it went. I am so excited. The fact that we get to do this 2 more times on the testnets and then on mainnet, super exciting. Like, and there's going to be more calls as well. I'm hosting one of them. I'm hosting the Sepolia call, which is either in 3 weeks or I guess like 6 weeks, right? And then there's going to obviously be a call from mainnet as well. So calls abound. It's going to be very, very fun, and I'm glad you're all on board for the ride here. So just before I finish up on talking about the merge related stuff, we've got here Tim Biker put out a tweet saying, with Ropsten now on proof of stake, friendly reminder that many testnets will be shut down by end of the year. Kiln will shut down after its mainnet merge. After mainnet merge. Rinkeby won't be merged, shut down by end of year, and Ropsten is merged today, obviously, and shut down by end of year as well. The only testnets that are going to be maintained post-merge are Girly and Sepolia. So if you're a developer or anyone that actively uses a testnet for whatever reason, just keep this in mind. Just kind of like a quick shout out there. All right, so related to, I guess, like the merge and kind of like proof of stake Ethereum in general, I put out this tweet where I said, it's weird that people think Ethereum is hot swapping its consensus to something totally new and untested. The beacon chain has been live as a proof of stake network since December 1st, 2020. It will have been over 18 months by the time the execution layer merges with the consensus layer. Now, December 1st, 2020, beacon chain goes live. There has all this ETH at stake, and since then it's just grown. There's literally billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars at stake in the beacon chain right now. Yes, the beacon chain isn't coming to consensus on anything except itself. Its blocks are empty. There's no transactions in those blocks, right? There's nothing kind of like of value being generated there. But there is still tens of billions of ETH being staked on the beacon chain, right? They're still kind of like at risk if there was something wrong with the beacon chain. Now, since December 1st, 2020, there has been a few bugs here and there that have been kind of like repaired, and it's been mostly uneventful, right? Like things have just been running really, really well. We had the first kind of like hard fork on the beacon chain a little while ago that went through just fine, and its next hard fork is coming up to get it prepared for the merge. And so when people say that we're kind of like implementing proof of stake on Ethereum without testing it, and it's it's as if it's something totally new, that's completely wrong. It's not new. It's not untested. It's been, by the time the merge happens, it will have been about 18 months, or probably over 18 months since that beacon chain went live, and that's what we're kind of like hot swapping in and getting rid of proof of work, obviously. Now, in saying that, it doesn't mean that the beacon chain is perfect. It doesn't mean that there could be no bugs in the future. Obviously, we're going to keep upgrading. We're going to keep introducing new things that could lead to bugs as well, or there could be dormant ones that get found later. But that's just par for the course. That goes for every piece of software in the world. Like, that's nothing unique to the beacon chain or to Ethereum. So I just wanted to kind of like lay that out there, that it's just silly whenever someone says that it's new and untested, because the whole reason of setting up the beacon chain first without kind of like just changing Ethereum to proof of stake in one fell swoop was to make sure that this kind of like new consensus mechanism, or a new proof of stake kind of like mechanism that is on the bleeding edge of kind of like of proof of stake was tested over a long period of time and allowed time to bake, so to speak, before we kind of merge the two layers together. So that was the exact reason why it was done. But yeah, just wanted to kind of like highlight that for you guys. All right, so there was a bit of a drama around Optimism today. So the TLDR is that apparently with the OP token, they sent 20 million OP tokens to a market-making firm called Wintermute, and they sent these tokens to Wintermute's multi-sig address, which they kind of like, they created a Gnosis safe kind of multi-sig wallet for this. But the problem was that Wintermute created this wallet on layer 1 Ethereum, where, as some of you may be aware, the OP token does not exist on layer 1 Ethereum. It only exists on layer 2, on the Optimism network. Now, what happens in the old versions of Gnosis Safe, which is what Wintermute was using, is that if you deploy it to layer 1, someone can then, or an attacker can then actually deploy it to layer 2. And Calvin Fichter here goes through the technical breakdown of how this works in this thread here, but that's exactly what the attacker did. They were able to deploy it to layer 2, which means they technically had access to those 20 million OP tokens that were Wintermute's, and basically were able to, I guess, sell a bunch, and then they sold some, they sent some to, I think they sent 1 million OP to Vitalik for some reason. I don't know. It was a bit messy. And of course, the price of the OP token has dropped because of this as well. But yeah, just a very, it's a very weird kind of like exploit here, very weird bug here that you don't see often. And unfortunately, this should not have happened. Like, I mean, realistically, this shouldn't have happened. Like, Wintermute should have known that they needed to deploy this Gnosis Safe on layer 2 on Optimism, because the OP token didn't exist on layer 1. And the Optimism team should have probably double-checked this, right? So there was a bit of kind of like failures all around. I think this is kind of like the bystander effect, where everyone just assumes that everything was all well and good and it kind of like went through. But again, everyone kind of like makes mistakes here. I'm sure they're going to learn from this and kind of like learn a very, very good and serious lesson here. But yeah, just something I wanted to highlight for you guys because I thought it was noteworthy. And definitely check out this thread from Calvin Fichter here, to basically breaking down on a technical level how it works. I love his threads. Like, I'm not super technical, obviously not a developer, but I love his technical threads because it allows me to read through it and then get a better understanding of how it all works. And it's actually pretty cool to kind of like see it all broken down the way Calvin breaks it down. So definitely go check this out if you haven't yet. I think the latest is that Wintermute offered kind of a white hack bounty or something, and basically said that, if you return everything and return the kind of like funds, we'll just let you go and we'll give you like a bounty. Whereas they said if you don't return the funds, you being the attacker, then we're going to use everything at our disposal to basically publicly dox you and have law enforcement go after you and all that sorts of stuff there. Look, if I was the attacker in any of these scenarios, I would just take the white hat bounty, because when you think about it, right, not only are you at risk of being doxxed, you're also going to find it very hard to ever cash that crypto out. Like, the centralized exchanges are basically just going to blacklist the addresses. Like, yes, you can run it through Tornado and things like that, but I mean, you got to do it like slowly, and depending on the amount of money it is, it becomes really hard, and then that leaves a trail, leaves breadcrumbs behind, and chain analysis companies can potentially do pattern matching and things like that to de-anonymize you. So it really just isn't worth the hassle and risk. I think at the end of the day, I think taking the white hat bounty is worth more, and this is why bounty programs actually need to be a lot larger. Optimism is pretty big already, but like in general, if the team can afford it, their bounty program should be should be very, very big, because that works as kind of an incentive to be like, okay, well, here's $1 million if you find a critical bug, or $2 million if you find a critical bug in our code, and rather than like the attacker being like, okay, well, I can steal 100 million, but how am I going to cash it out? Like realistically, cashing out 100 million to kind of like fiat into getting it into your bank account and being able to spend it is going to be extremely hard. And depending where you are, you're going to have to declare that as kind of like taxable income. And there's so much that goes into it, right? Like, and honestly, like, it really doesn't pay to be a criminal, just because you live in fear as well at the end of the day. Like, so just take the white hat bounty and just take the bounty in kind of like my mind. But I guess like first, don't hack projects. Like if you find a critical bug in it, if they've got a good bug bounty program, that's more incentive for the attacker to report it. But I think that if the bug bounty program is kind of like shitty, say for some of them that the program is $50,000 for critical bugs, well, I mean, if you stand to kind of like maybe make $10 million out of it, then you're probably going to take your chances with that, because you're not going to go to $50,000 because it's just not worth it. And I'm just trying to put my mind in kind of like the mind of an attacker here. And then it depends who it is, right? We saw with the Ronin hacker, it was actually the North Korean hacker group, Lazarus, right? They don't give a fuck, right? They don't care at all. They're just going to steal the funds. So I think this just applies to maybe just individuals or small groups that maybe aren't kind of like nation states, right? Because the nation states don't care. But that's a whole different kettle of fish. I'm not even going to kind of like reason about that. But when it comes to individuals and small groups, they definitely should kind of like consider the white hat bounty here. All right, so an interesting tweet here from Rodrigo, who works for legal at Paradigm, where he said there's been a lot of great content about legal wrappers for DAOs recently, and we'd like to add one more to the mix: the DAO Legal Entity Matrix. And you can find this at daos.paradigm.xyz here, which basically gives you more detail into it. But for the sake of kind of like just the video today, you can see kind of like images of legal entities for DAOs and like how they kind of like can get wrapped in these entities. So you can see here that with no legal entity, obviously it's just DAO members kind of like all scattered around there, right? Then you have like an LLC wrapper, which you have the DAO members, but then you have an LLC, which is a limited liability corporation in the US, wrapped around that, right? And then you have other things like, an ownerless foundation, where you have a foundation that, a DAO that is kind of like affiliated with a foundation, but there's no kind of like direct connection there. And then, you can go through all these, but basically this is pretty cool because I think, as I've discussed before, for the doxed US-based teams, like especially US-based teams, they're going to need to look at this and think through this like very, very carefully, because if they want to be a DAO, if they want to have a token, if they want to be able to drive value to that token, they're going to need some forms of protection here. That's the whole point of something like an LLC, right? It limits the liability of the person or the people running the company or running kind of like any entity, right? Any for-profit entity. So from that perspective, I like seeing things like this, especially when it comes from, places like Paradigm, which are obviously, there's a very big concentration of gigabrains at Paradigm. But if you want more information about how all this could work, potentially, you can definitely check out this table here on their website, which I'll link in the YouTube description. But this is daos.paradigm.xyz here, which goes into much more detail than I will today on this episode. But yeah, I thought this is very, very cool. DAOs is another area that I try to pay attention to, but just don't have the time to pay attention to, especially because like it's exploding as fast as anything right now. And I think there's a lot of noise there too, just like anything, right? But I think, for those of you who have watched my interview with the Steakborg DAO, basically my general view on DAOs is that from the highest levels, people have the wrong idea about them. They think that DAOs are basically anarchy. No. DAOs don't have to be anarchy, and they shouldn't be anarchy. When it comes to DAOs, they should have leaders. They should have coordinators. Doesn't make them centralized, but if you just have anarchy within the DAO, what ends up happening is that the leadership void gets filled by the worst people, or the treasury just gets raided, or the project goes nowhere, or the token goes nowhere. Like, there's so many negative kind of consequences because of it. So I think that having leadership and coordination within a DAO is critically important to the DAO, and that's pretty much related to what Paradigm has put together here. So definitely check out this. It'll be in the YouTube description below. All right, so something I came across today, which is called Morpho-Compound. So if you have a position on Compound Finance, you can now upgrade your yields using Morpho-Compound, which is live at compound.morpho.xyz. So basically, it's a lending optimizer here. Morpho is a lending pool optimizer. It means that by using Morpho, one can upgrade its positions on lending protocols such as Compound or Aave with peer-to-peer liquidity. And today they're announcing Morpho-Compound here. So why would you use it? Well, as I said, optimize your yields here. I'm sure this comes with kind of like more risk and everything like that, which I think at this point you guys are well aware of. But yeah, if you are interested in kind of like going and checking this out and using this, if you have a Compound position open, you can go to compound.morpho.xyz and check it all out here, connect your wallet, all that good stuff as well. And you can even claim your comp tokens through this too, which is pretty cool to see. So I just wanted to kind of like highlight this because something new, something different that I hadn't seen before. And I'll be keeping an eye on this to see kind of like how it evolves from here. All right, finally, we have an interesting tweet from Justin Drake today, who was comparing the electricity consumption estimates of different kind of like entities. So you got the world, which is 25,000 terawatt hours. I think terawatt hours. Bitcoin at 204 terawatt hours, which is 0.8% of the world's energy usage, which is pretty insane, right? Ethereum at 85 terawatt hours, which is 0.34% of the world's energy usage. And then later on, Justin kind of like provides some alternative sources, which quotes that Bitcoin is 60% lower than it is here, and Ethereum is about 3 times lower than it is here. So the rough big picture crypto electricity consumption is around 1%. I guess Ethereum would be what, 0.1% of that or something like that, right? Still pretty crazy when you think about it, but yeah, it's there. And this and as Justin says here, this electricity consumed to produce the rigs is not accounted for either, and all the waste that comes from the rigs too. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because he put another tweet where he said Ethereum post-merge is 0.000% of the world. So basically, the costs become negligible for Ethereum kind of like post-merge here, and it just completely collapses it, which is pretty crazy, right? I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I think there's going to be a shit ton of GPUs that flood the market. The gamers are going to love that. There's going to and they're not going to be GPUs that have been worn down or anything like that. Polynya has actually explained this before, where basically with GPUs for mining, they actually have to be run kind of like underclocked because they're more efficient that way. So they're actually not kind of like being kind of just beaten down, and they're kind of like not great to use later. They're fine to use later. So yeah, there's going to be tons flooding the secondary market, but there's going to be some electricity companies, I reckon, or electricity producers that are supplying these kind of, I guess, mining farms, and they're going to take a little bit of a hit here, right? Like, especially if Ethereum just say accounts for 0.1% of the world's electricity usage, that's a lot, guys. Like, I mean, I know it doesn't sound like a lot because, say 0.1%, but you're talking about the world's energy usage, like the entire planet, right? Like, it's a lot. So there's that aspect to it as well. And then obviously the positive narratives, Ethereum is green, Ethereum is no longer proof of work, and now we can kind of build on Ethereum because we don't feel like we're destroying the planet, all that sorts of stuff. Like narrative or truth, it doesn't matter, right? I think the narrative matters more than the reality or truth when it comes to this. And I've had this discussion on the Refuel before about proof of work. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it kind of like, is it killing the planet? Blah, blah, blah. But I mean, in my mind, in my play of this is not to get too involved with it. For me, I don't like proof of stake because it loses less energy. Like that's not even something that I really think about too much. I like proof of stake, Ethereum proof of stake, not every proof of stake, just Ethereum's proof of stake, because it is such an elegantly designed system that optimizes for so many good things, right? Optimizes for liveness, it optimizes for kind of like resiliency, it optimizes for security, like economic security, and it just makes sense, right? It punishes the bad actors, it lets us kind of like fork out like really bad actors that are trying to spawn camp attack us and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of like the main reason why I'm excited about it, rather than the energy use reduction, which is a bonus in my mind. Like it's getting reduced by 99.9%, nice little bonus. But the rest of proof of stake related things is with regards to Ethereum is what I'm most excited about. But still cool to see Justin do this comparison here. Again, these are just like really rough estimates. You can't get like an exact picture. It's very, very hard to get an exact picture of the electricity consumption, but we can get estimates, and the estimates are still pretty pretty high, right? So once Ethereum goes off proof of work, drops to basically 0%. Gonna love to see it, right? All right, so Robin here from Liquify, which is kind of a token investing dashboard here, has put together a thread where he started with thinking about launching a token in this market or granting future tokens to employees and investors. We did some analysis on the latest tokenomics benchmarks and trends to help you plan your critical token decisions. Now, I don't think you need to read this just if you're kind of like planning to issue a token or part of a team that's planning to issue a token. You should definitely read this because it's just a super interesting thread about tokens in general. And I'll link it in the description for you to do so. But basically, this chart really kind of like stood out to me. You can see here that this chart shows token distributions or token allocations from 2017 to 2022. On the left-hand side, 2017, you can see that 55% usually went to public sale, which was obviously the ICO mania. But then over time, this number has been shrinking and is basically non-existent now. In 2022, only 3% of the token allocation goes to the public sale on kind of like on average here, right? The biggest share is actually now community incentives or distributions, aka airdrops and liquidity mining. Then second place would be company reserves or treasury. Fourth is core team, and third is investors. So I think this is an interesting view of things, right, guys? Like when you kind of look at this sorts of stuff, like people will say, oh, you know, it was better in 2017. And then some people will say, no, it's better now. I think there's a very nuanced discussion here. And I don't think there's any right answer. As I've discussed before, token distributions are very, very hard to get right. But I don't think ICOs were a net positive, honestly. Like, just because things are available for public sale doesn't really mean anything. So let me give you a few examples here. There are plenty of tokens that were sold majority in a public sale or an ICO, or a lot in a public sale and ICO, that are down a lot from their all-time highs, or just from kind of like just in general. And that's because the project didn't actually go anywhere. It didn't have any product market fit. It doesn't matter how good the token distribution was. The project was just shit, right? So this is kind of like what it's all about. Like the token distribution, I think, is important, but it's kind of like secondary. Like the primary thing is the product actually good? Because if the product is shit, it doesn't matter how good your token distribution is. It doesn't matter if you give 100% to the community. Like it's still going to suck, right? The token's not going to accrue any value, or it's going to accrue very little value. So I think that primary thing that people should be looking at is the product itself first and foremost, right? Then the secondary thing is token distribution, which I think is very, very important, but nowhere near as important as actually having a product that people want to use and having product market fit. That's the most important thing out of any of these sorts of stuff, right? So then from there, we can reason about the new reality of 2022. Community incentives or distributions. Is this better than ICOs? Right? Like, I mean, airdrops, most people just sell them. The incentives, the liquidity mining, people just farm and dump. So, I mean, the net result's basically the same. Like, ICOs basically became that. People would just buy and then sell on secondary because it would pump, because you'd get in early and then just kind of like dump on everyone else. So, yeah, that's all I can say. And then the rest of it didn't really change since even 2018, right? So investors, core team, company reserves, I mean, that's all stock standard stuff. Some people will argue that investors get too much. Some people argue that core team gets too much. This is just much lower than, you know, non-crypto companies, guys, like in terms of a share of the company, or I guess like the protocol here. But I think it's that 44%, or including the company reserves or treasury, 66%, that should be the main focus here. I think that's what we still need to kind of like get right, because at the end of the day, you need to basically make it so that on net, more people want to hold and buy the token than want to kind of like farm and sell it, or just sell it in general. And I know that may be obvious, but like that is literally the equation. Like, how do you get more people to how do you produce more demand for the token than there is kind of like supply on the market, or people kind of like selling, right? It's just a supply and demand thing. It's extremely hard to do. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. Like, it took, I mean, even ETH, right, which today is, in my mind, the most bullish asset in crypto, bar none, still went down 94% from its all-time high in 2017, because it went up a lot due to its kind of like hype cycle, came down 2018, 2019, and then went down 94%, and then came back only because Ethereum survived, right? Ethereum, the network survived. Ethereum, the network actually found use cases like DeFi, like NFTs, like DAOs, like all these sorts of stuff. And ETH as an asset has amazing tokenomics with 1559, with the, with staking, with ETH getting monetary premium, all that sorts of stuff. So you see how that works, right? None of that stuff would have happened if Ethereum as a network didn't have product market fit, if it was useless. Ethereum as a network has one product. It's block space. Everyone freaking wants Ethereum's block space. That's why the fees are so high. So you see how that works, right? The Ethereum product came first, then the token came second. Now, yes, obviously Ethereum's token distribution is much better than pretty much any token except maybe Bitcoin. But I don't think that would have mattered, and it didn't matter when Ethereum wasn't actually a popular product, which is during the last bear market in 2018 and 2019. So when Ethereum did become a popular product, when we had DeFi Summer, when we actually had Ethereum block space commanded premium, and gas fees started going up, that's when ETH as an asset also started going up. And you can map this pretty closely, actually. So yeah, just kind of like, I think making those connections can help you a lot. But yeah, go give this thread a read here from Robin. It's very, very good. And I should disclose I'm an investor in Liquify as well here. Just gonna get that out there. But the thread is very, very interesting, and it's related to a lot of stuff that I think about pretty regularly as well when it comes to like token distributions and things like that. All right, so finally here, I just wanted to say the Gitcoin Grants R14 is now live. Thank you everyone that has donated to the Daily Gwei and ETH Hub so far. I really, really appreciate it as always. But don't just donate to me, donate to all of your favorite projects. You can go to gitcoin.co/grants/explorer. There are millions of dollars up for grabs. I think it's $3 million in this round up for grabs, which is crazy. So definitely go donate to your favorite projects, get your donations matched, and that matching comes out of the $3 million pool there, and support the public goods, because public goods are goods, and the only good maximalist is a public goods maximalist. That's like my motto these days. But yeah, just wanted to give a heads up to you guys that it's now live, so definitely go donate if you haven't yet. But on that note, that is it for today. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.